I appreciate everybody that came down tonight to provide us with the information that was provided. And I'm just going to introduce this resolution going forward.
Okay. I'm not putting resolutions on the floor tonight.
I mean,
Any board member.
yeah, you don't have to, as a supervisor, you're not the only one that does resolutions.
I'm pretty sure you have to second it.
Oh, I know.
So.
Oh, I know.
You think after this meeting, just one meeting out of 15 months, that you have enough information to make an accurate
So you
decision?
gotta remember, Mr. Stott, I was on the board
Oh, I remember.
when this grant was applied for and was granted. So, and Ms. Bruno was as well, so.
Also, you realize it took us 4 months to
I know, but-
choose an engineer. This is generational, so I think we should, out of respect for the town of Coeymans, have a discussion.
We've had a number
Yeah,
of discussions.
Yes.
So can I proceed with the resolution, or do you want me to make a motion to proceed with the resolution?
I don't feel a resolution is right at the time.
Okay, well, I'm gonna proceed. I, Councilmember Schmitt, offer the following resolution and move its adoption. Whereas the town of Coeymans in 2023 applied for and was awarded a $17 million Track C Fast New York grant for electrical infrastructure upgrades to support the growth of our local economy. And whereas this award supports an $83.8 million project that will make Coeymans a key player in New York State's growing clean tech and renewable energy manufacturing sectors. And whereas this project will address power constraints that are limiting economic growth in Coeymans while benefiting our small businesses and residents by improving overall grid reliability. And whereas this project will have no out-of-pocket cost to the Coeymans taxpayers. And whereas the town board recognizes that this project is essential to transitioning our region to a green economy with the town of Coeymans leading the way. And whereas the town board recognizes and acknowledges that this project is in furtherance of and consistent with the town's comprehensive master plan. And whereas the town board and representatives from the Advanced Albany County Alliance Local Development Corporation, Alliance, have discussed this grant and project on numerous occasions, as well as the limitations that the town possesses with regards to administering a grant of this size, given its limited resources and expertise in such matters, as well as the benefits that would be realized by both the town, the project, and the Alliance should the town authorize the Alliance to administer the grant on behalf of and for the benefit of the town of Coeymans. And whereas the town board recognizes that the Alliance, as the lead economic development organization for Albany County, has the capacity and expertise needed to implement a grant of this nature, and has extensive grant and financial management experience and a track record of working with utilities to facilitate power infrastructure improvements of this kind. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Coeymans does hereby request that Empire State Development assign implementation and administration of this grant, ESD project number 137,585, to the Advanced Albany County Alliance Local Development Corporation on behalf of and for the benefit of the town of Coeymans. And be it further resolved that the town board of the town of Coeymans hereby authorizes and directs the town supervisor, or in his absence, the deputy town supervisor, to execute any and all agreements and documents necessary to assign implementation and administration of grant, ESD project number 137,585, from the town of Coeymans to Advanced Albany County Alliance Local Development Corporation, and to effectuate the purpose of this resolution in a timely manner.
I'll second.
For discussion.
Discussion?
Yeah. Is it okay for discussion if I read something? Is that okay? Is there a time limit on it?
Well, before we get into that, did you have a look at this resolution? Is this
Just read it right now.
okay. What's your legal opinion on it?
There are a lot of pieces associated with this grant. I think some compelling arguments have been made, in terms of its ultimate benefit to the town. I think there are some real benefits to ultimately considering assigning certain administrative tasks and responsibility to the county based on their experience. But I don't, from a legal perspective, I would not recommend assigning that without knowing the parameters under which you're assigning it, without seeing what the grant agreement will look like, what the agreements with the other interested agencies and enterprises.
But again, this resolution is simply allowing the supervisor, or in his absence, the deputy supervisor, to execute documents that will be created as a result of this. So we know that there hasn't been, agreements drawn up.
Right.
But that's what this resolution is for, is to get started and to the town board allowing and approving that the supervisor and or the deputy execute certain documents going forward, to move this along.
Yeah, I am all for moving it along. I can't recall off the top of my head another instance where we've approved a contract without it having actually been negotiated beforehand.
Well, the contract would be negotiated
I understand.
prior to it being
Yeah.
signed. This doesn't mean that the county is gonna provide documents to the supervisor and the supervisor is just gonna sign them. There's going to be negotiation, there's going to be discussion, but this allows us to move forward. This allows the alliance to do what they need to do, to present us with documents going forward.
Right, I mean, I think I would certainly recommend a request be made to the Alliance for things like what that agreement might look like between us and them for the assignment of the administrative responsibilities. There were mentions of community benefit agreements. I think it would be great to see what they would look like so that this board could review them and digest them and make any changes that you thought were needed. I think it'd be helpful to see what proposed agreements would look like between the town as the recipient of the grant, who under the current language of the grant agreement is technically responsible for the balance of those costs, and I understand there's commitments that ultimately that won't be, the final result, but I think there's some drafting that needs to happen between now and then. It would be my recommendation that you see those beforehand.
And again, my understanding and my opinion, while I'm not a lawyer, is that we will have the opportunity to see those documents.
Well, this board, the five of you, would be authorizing the supervisor and/or you unilaterally
Not me.
to sign agreements.
I'm not the deputy.
Okay, or the deputy, to sign them unilaterally. Again, this is not something I was aware would be presented tonight, but I would generally recommend the board have before it contracts that are being considered before it authorizes someone to sign.
We've had extensive discussions,
For discussion, I just want to read something, if that's okay.
Sure.
Sure. Let me start by saying that I support economic development as long as it is environmentally conscious, safe, and doesn't impose negatively on the lives and well-being of our residences. Now that being said, in 2021, the town board at the time, consisting of Supervisor McHugh, Dan Baker, Zach Collins, Brandon Lefevre, and Linda Bruno, adopted through a resolution an updated comprehensive plan to the town of Coeymans. Now, for those of you who don't know, the comprehensive plan is essentially the town board saying, this is the community's goals and vision for the future of the town of Coeymans. And one of the categories of this comprehensive plan is economic development. So it's a pretty important one paragraph. Let me read it to you. A significant opportunity in the town of Coeymans is the growth and expansion of industry along the riverfront and along Route 144. The growth of the Port of Coeymans, the Coeymans Industrial Park, Lafarge North America, and the development of additional industrial parks along New York State Route 144 create numerous opportunities and employment for support for the local economy and the school system. While this growth provides many opportunities to the community, it comes with challenges, including the balance of residential, commercial, and industrial growth and protecting the health and safety of residents and the environment. The environmental impacts of industrial growth should be considered to ensure the best quality of life for all members of the community. To ensure a balance, industry or industrial development should be directed to existing industrial areas and maintain a substantial buffer from residential areas to maintain the character of existing neighborhoods. Currently, there is still room for growth within the industrial zones. Additional industrial growth is only intended to occur within existing industrial areas. No geographic expansion of existing industrial zones is recommended at this time. Now really there's two parts to this, if you've been listening, there's two parts. One stating the importance of industry for jobs, tax revenue, the school district, and the other part warning of the dangers of such industrialization and growth, specifically harping on the fact that industry should not expand outside of pre-existing zones, and it mentions it several times. Furthermore, to add to the protection of residential agricultural spaces from industry, the 2 years after the comp plan was written, so 2022, 2023, the previous town board of Mr. McHugh, Lefevre, Toutey, Bruno, and Schmitt had all been adamant about this protection, proclaiming over and over to residents and to anyone who had concerns regarding the actions of industry in our town that they, the town board, were here to protect the people and from any industrial creep and to keep a balance between residences and industry. So
How's that been violated?
What's that?
How's that been
Oh,
violated?
I'll get to it.
And what are you reading?
I'm just reading something.
What are you reading?
I'm reading something. It's my discussion.
Okay.
I can't read it.
No, you can, but I'm just curious as to where you got the information that you're reading from. Because you referenced my name.
Yes.
So I'm just
Were you
wondering.
not on the town board the last 2 years?
I was.
Okay, that's what I just said.
Okay, so where are you getting the information from?
It's public record. You were on the town board the last 2 years. That's what I just said. See?
I understand.
Let me finish, and if you have questions, I can answer them. Okay?
Yeah.
2 years after the adoption, okay? So you would think that between these two town boards, one creating an updated comp plan and the other swearing to uphold it, that the town would be secure in its ability to not only allow industry outside of industrial zones and just to keep us all safe, but 2 years after the comp plan, so this is May 24th, 2023, I get a phone call from then Supervisor McHugh in which he explains a situation that he had been made aware of. He stated that in this conversation, Tenike Powell, Wholesome, and General Electric are planning to use 30 acres of Powell's agricultural land in order to build a wind turbine manufacturing facility. We both agreed in that phone call that that would violate the town's comprehensive plan. He created then a local law, essentially making it so that if you own two parcels, residential and industrial, you can't essentially turn that industrial into agricultural, and I was proud of George. You know, I thought that was a great thing by him. Now, June 13th, we get to what we're talking about tonight. June 13th, just a few weeks later after that phone call, Mr. McHugh sends a completed application for the $17 million grant for the Port of Coeymans. As I read Mr. McHugh's answers, and I talked about those tonight, the application's questions, it became very apparent that what he told me he was trying to prevent on May 24th, he was actually supporting just a couple weeks later. And again, I talked about how he said it's necessary for offshore wind, and how it says, we have, quotes, we have the right to use the acreage of Mr. Powell, which is residential agricultural land. So while you tell me that this isn't for offshore wind, I find it hard to believe, or at least in the inception of this project, it was. Now, as many of you have already been aware, while the grant application happened in June of 2023, a few months later, Carver Companies put forth an application to the PBZBA asking for a site use variance for roughly 30 acres of Mr. Powell's residential agricultural land. Now, I personally spoke out against this application, not because I'm anti-industry or because I don't support economic development, but because I believe the application violated the comp plan, asking to use 30 acres of agricultural residential land, in which the plan warns against many times. Secondly, the application was asking to use an agricultural accessory use variance for industrial purposes. But the more important question to the previous town boards is, where were you during this? In my opinion, you created a fairly specific comp plan and then preached to the public that you would defend and protect the residents from any industrial creep. But none of you spoke out against or even questioned the wind turbine application. Instead, it seems as though as soon as industry snapped their fingers and mentioned economic development, regardless of how that development would occur, you have those same people actually supporting the things they previously rallied against. For example, Marissa Toutey wrote a letter to the PBZBA supporting the turbine application. Brandon Lefevre sat right there next to Carver Laraway at the public hearing in support of it. And George McHugh not only got a grant to promote this, but also he sent a sewer letter to Carver Companies saying you have the right to use the town sewer. Without, I don't even think he even told the town board about it, but we can talk about that. So you didn't practice what you preached, and in my opinion, when you should have been slapping industry on the wrist, you were patting them on the back. In closing, economic development, and more specifically, industrial development, is only as good as the regulation, the checks and balances, and the oversight that go along with it. We as a town cannot be complacent and continue to simply be reactive. We need to be proactive. We need to plan ahead to protect our residences and their quality of life. If we allow certain additions to our industrial footprint, then we need to be forward thinkers in not only how such additions could be beneficial to our town, but also how they could be detrimental to our town in the future. As a board, if we were to accept this grant, it should come with certain things like guaranteed protections for the people of this town. It should come with a lot of discussions and a lot of interactions, not just a one-time after 15 months conversation for an hour and a half. So, for my discussion, I feel like this is irresponsible. I feel like it took us 4 months to decide on an engineering firm for 9W, and we're throwing this out here. You're right, it's been 15 months, but not one of these people talked to me in 15 months, Steve. So how do I have information on it? Everything I've heard about that, I heard
The
tonight.
supervisor has had plenty of conversations.
But you haven't, I haven't,
Again,
we haven't.
Real quick. Mr. Schmitt, Ms. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Hoteling, Supervisor, did we all talk to the county about this? Personal phone calls?
Yep.
Did we have personal phone calls? Multiple? Yes or no?
Yeah,
Did we have a Zoom call? Yes or no?
yes.
Did we have a personal
None of
phone
these
call?
questions.
Did we have a personal
You,
phone
me, and
call?
Luke Rogers did, Zach.
Okay, but hang on, you just said 3 times, nobody's ever come to us. You
Zach,
keep saying nobody's ever
Zach-
come, time out.
Okay, sure,
You just went on a big long spiel.
yeah,
You just
well
said.
deserved,
Well deserved, I hope you got it out.
I
Great.
did. Thank
Okay,
you.
let me get mine out.
I will.
Okay, thank you, I would appreciate that. I've spoken to each and every one of you about this. How many times has the county exec been down here? Multiple? Twice, to speak about you. How many email threads are on here? How many times has Dave Whipple come up? Okay, so don't say that you have only received this information tonight, because that's false information. Feel how you want to feel.
It's not false, that's the first time we ever saw a map that looked like.
He said he hasn't heard from anybody.
That's great.
With all due respect, we met in your office, I showed you.
And you've met with Joe
You did not
Navarro.
bring that map to my office.
And you met with
That's why I
Joe
was happy
Navarro.
to see
This
it.
map is new. I'm glad you got to see it, because you had a lot of questions about it. Okay? We have spoken, okay? We have heard, we have done homework. Do not discredit my hard work, these guys' hard work, or your time. That is your hard work as well. That's your job to answer questions and ask them. It's your job. It absolutely is. Don't say it didn't happen. That's false information. Tonight is a big meeting. It is a big meeting.
Yeah.
But we've all had back information on this. We're 15 months in, Mike. We're 15 months in. Tonight, accepting this resolution would be accepting the funds for the grant. After that, you work with the county. After that, you set up your CBA. After that, you set up your town code. You can't set up town code if you don't know what's coming in. Great, you need to be aware of that. You need to be mindful of that. You're being a good steward. I totally get that. You can't set up code if you don't know what's coming in. So then you have to do your job, and you keep on everything, and you listen to what's coming in. You say, hey, a microchip plant's coming in. We're gonna need some town code on that. Town attorney, can you go to some other towns and see what they have for their code? Then that's how we build our code up. That's how we go forward. You guys keep saying we're putting the cart before the horse. You're putting the cart before the horse. It's gonna be a more important job that you're sitting in here in these seats, and who's ever gonna be here in the next 5 years, of who's going to be making these decisions. But you're not gonna be making any decisions if you don't accept this. You're not gonna be, and they're important. They're environmental decisions. They're community decisions. Community benefit agreements. We don't know what they are if we don't know who's coming in. But nobody's coming in if we don't have the power. We're talking in circles. Great, you make great points, and I agree with you. I totally do, I get it. But we're accepting a $17 million grant here so we can work as a community and decide what we want that $17 million to go to within the power. Within the power, it's within industry, it's not gonna increase, and if it wants to, that's your job to keep it and slap it on its wrist. That's your job after. You wanna slap it on the wrist and we got nowhere to slap. We got nowhere to slap. It's a big deal. It sucks sitting in that seat. I know. I know. All right? Thank you for listening to me. And hey, I respect you. I do.
I respect you too, Zach.
All right? I do. All right?
You know, I'll respond though. To be fair, our conversation, you called me with Luke Rogers, and we talked for maybe 15, 20 minutes, right?
Okay.
And I thought, Zach, we both sort of left that conversation with, yeah, it's an opportunity, but there's some issues with it.
And then that's why we set up this meeting.
Yeah,
You're the deputy
and there's still issues
supervisor.
with it.
You're the deputy supervisor. You should be privy to everything that he's going through. So you have a lot. You've had a
Let me
lot
ask you
of
a question,
chance.
Zach. And let me ask you a question.
Yep. Ask the question.
So Zach, my whole point was, you know, we've seen that we have an issue in the town of Coeymans with a balance between industry and residences. Can you deny that?
We've seen it. Yeah.
Yes,
an
we
issue
have
with
it.
truck traffic.
Absolutely. And I'm all for economic development, Zach. But the problem
You keep
is,
saying that. I know.
I know.
We know you're for economic
thanks,
development.
Zach. But the problem is, how is it that, like, with when the Carver companies had the wind turbine manufacturing facility, in which they specifically said, we need 30 acres of residential agricultural land. You wrote the comp plan. That wasn't in violation of the comp plan? It says 4 times you shouldn't go outside of existing zones.
Is anything there?
What part of tonight's
Zach,
conversation?
but did you
And then
speak up? Did
secondly-
he speak up? Did she speak up?
secondly,
They-
hang on, yeah, but
they all
nothing's
supported it,
there.
Zach.
And then
Yeah.
secondly, I'm
What part of
working
tonight's
with, I'm
conversation
working
is
with
outside
the
of the
county.
port?
Exactly.
Right.
There's nothing in tonight's conversation that's been discussed that's outside of the port.
And then I'm using this to work with the county to get a $50,000 truck traffic study so we can get eyes on it, because guess what? The state laughed at me when I said I wanted a throughway exit. I'm trying to get the truck traffic law. It's important. Guess what this community benefit agreement does? It brings eyes of ESD and New York State onto this issue. Hey, they're want to put this power plant or substation in, okay, substation, whatever it is. Hey, they have this truck traffic issue. They have a really major truck traffic issue with trucks going up and down Main Street. The county exec has told me he is willing to give me funds to do a truck traffic study. Then we can go to ESD and New York State and Mike Yevely and say, hey, can we bring Wholesome in here? Maybe this is going to bring the funds so we can take the trucks from 101 and go right across Wholesome plant. You're never going to get that if you vote this down.
I didn't
You're
say
never
I'm voting
gonna
it
get-
down. I just said I want more information.
You're
Zach.
never going to get that if you
I'm not gonna
don't
get
accept that. No.
I
No.
feel like there was a precedent set with the last board, and when they should have spoke up, they didn't.
And you just
And I'm
did.
worried now, Zach, that when they're telling me that, hey, we're gonna build it and they'll come, who's
You're
gonna
sitting
come?
in the driver's seat.
I am not,
Yeah,
Zach. I'm in the driver's
You're
seat.
sitting in the
have a
driver's
plan.
seat.
Absolutely not.
You're talking about
Zach,
the
you-
last board, you're on this board and you're a deputy
Zach, you know
supervisor.
town boards switch all the time.
Well, do a good job, and you'll be there. And you're doing a good job.
Doing a great
You're
job.
doing a great job.
He's
I'm
doing a
not saying
great
he's doing a
job.
But
bad
again,
job. He
that's
can be
why
there
we
for as
also
long as
have
he
a
needs to
planning
be,
and zoning
but he's
board of
in the
appeals
position that he
that's
wants to be
independent of
in.
this board. We can't make that decision.
Yeah, but, and I totally agree with you. I totally agree, you can't make the decision. Staying silent is one thing, but being proponents of it is a whole different thing, Stephen. That's what I was referring to.
And
mean,
you will be a
ha-
great proponent.
What's that?
You will be a great proponent going forward. Your voice is going to need to be heard. You're
And
not
we
gonna.
heard him, we heard him.
Okay, I
We
heard
did.
you.
Loud and
Thank you.
clear.
I just feel like,
Loud and clear.
I feel like there's a lot of question marks, and I know and you know, things come up, they take time, and if we accept this, now who's in the driver's seat later on?
You are.
Zach, I am not.
You're on the driver's seat.
We as a board
No, we
will
are.
be.
Who was in the driver's seat when they clear cut the property?
Okay, so
Okay,
let's
so
focus,
we're done with
let's
that.
focus the
We're
meeting,
done.
everybody
Yeah,
made
let's
some
just-
really
let's
good
just-
points. This was a presentation, as I said
I
at the
thought it
very
was, I thought it was
beginning of this
informational as well, I
meeting.
guess I was wrong.
There's a
This
resolution on
was
the
a
table.
we're still in discussion.
Okay.
There was this was described as a presentation at the very beginning of this meeting so that we could gather information, which we did. And thank you, Joe, and everybody that stood up and gave their points of view, their opinions, the facts that we had. The fact is that we have not discussed a community benefit agreement, Kevin. We have what did you say, daycare, healthcare, workforce, blight of decrepit buildings. You were saying, Dave, truck traffic. We haven't negotiated one of those things. This resolution is incredibly reckless. It hasn't gone through the town attorney, and we're giving the game away
We're not,
because
we're not giving
No,
the
we're
game.
not.
No one here said they were gonna vote against this $17 million grants. I personally think it's incredible. Let's move forward with that, but not this way. Not submarined with a resolution that's written by a non-lawyer who says himself, I'm not a lawyer, but look what I cranked out.
This isn't submarine, this is something that has been on the table.
The town
for
attorney
15
didn't see it,
months.
neither did anybody else on the board, probably except for Ron.
Mr. Holtine, did you see
It's
it?
incredibly
Before that?
reckless.
I get one question.
No, I didn't see anything.
So we talk about time, right? And
So you guys don't wanna have a discussion about with Kevin and Zach and everybody that wants to promise all of these things, all of a
I
sudden,
want to move forward
And
with
there are
accepting the
agreements
$17 million grant.
that expose the town. That $185,000 that Mike was talking about, you're exposing the town to pay that.
This
You're
resolution,
relying on the
this
good graces.
resolution is to accept the $17
I understand.
million grant, and then we will go forward.
Doesn't say that.
I mean, it doesn't say you're accepting the grant. It just says you're assigning all sorts of authority and responsibility to the county. That may be what you want to do in the end, but I, from a legal perspective, I can't advise you to do that blindly.
I have a question. So, and I understand it's under a time constraint, and that's why people are freaking out, and I get that. That's understandable. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, we get through the information, we all agree, like, okay, yeah, it's great, we have the things in place to make sure, like, everybody's protected, and we all have a sound understanding of what's going on. How long, Mr. Riley, how long would it take for the town of Coeymans to accept a grant? Like, is it just a resolution like this, and then that beats the 2-year time mark? It's not like it's tomorrow, it's several months away. Like, it doesn't take much time, it just takes a resolution like they have here, and that would accept the grant for the town.
It's my understanding, and I think really ultimately the determination is made by ESD. They think they've taken certain steps with state agencies beginning their processes. As I heard them today, if we had the agreements in place, that would be considered sort of acceptance or completion of the grant for the purposes of satisfying that 2-year requirement. I think everybody understands that the actual payment out of the grant will take years.
Right.
But us accepting the grant is pretty quick, to get things, to get the ball rolling, accept the grant, and cut off any deadline. It's not gonna take several months. I personally, listen, I support the grant, I want the grant, but I don't wanna do it hastily. I don't wanna do it without everything known and everything, all the, I's
Mike, there's
I's
always
dotted and
gonna be
T's crossed.
unknowns, there's always gonna be unknowns,
I
number
agree.
one. I know, and
I
you
just-
respect me, I know, but you have to listen.
First of all, if everybody's saying that they're going to vote for it, what is the harm of waiting and having an actual resolution prepared by our town attorney
Why don't you
The
tell
town
me?
attorney says,
You
to
have a
work
motion and a
with, to
second
work
on the
with
floor.
EST?
Yeah. Let's take a
We're
vote.
still in discussion.
Okay.
To work with ESD and Albany County Alliance to actually hammer out these details. Your council is telling you this is a bad idea, and you're exposing the town and being incredibly reckless.
I'm not.
And if you,
No,
and if you
no.
feel like that's what you need
No,
to,
we're not
no.
being reckless, absolutely
then have a
not.
vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries.
Against?
What did you just vote for? Voted to accept that $17 million grant.
You actually did not.
You voted against our town attorney's advice.
Yes, that's what they did.
Why are we paying an attorney?
Are there any further public comments? If so, step up to the lectern.
Yes. I think this was a reckless vote. And while Zach and many others may have talked to the town, you may have had conversations with the board, you have not consulted the residents of the town. The people who live here, who are affected by this, have not been consulted. And until all of us have a chance to comment on this, I think this vote should be rescinded. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say,
Can you say your
my
name
name is Diana Abady. I have a Master's of Science in Public Health. And I looked at the cancer statistics by census tract. And you unfortunately have, the last time the DOH calculated cancer statistics by census code, a higher than expected rate of lung and bronchus cancer. You also have a higher rate of asthma hospitalizations, and that data is by zip code. So just from a public health standpoint, it's important to note that particulate matter 2.5, the smallest matter that also goes across the river, and diesel fumes are both class 1 carcinogens. So I'm just concerned about public health for anybody. You know, I live in Athens, and that cancer cluster goes down there too. It's really important that when you do consider industry, and I'm not opposed to this substation, but I'm confused because we talked about 50 kilowatts and then someone else said 115. And so I thought I heard someone say 115 kilowatts, but up to 100, you really need to be careful about what industries you bring in, and also about quality of life and environmental health, not just for people, but for the animals and the species in the river. Thank you very much.
Diane, can I just have your address, please?
Yeah, 394 Flats Road, Athens, New York, Abadie.
And you said that was Athens?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I used to sail up here a lot, so I really like the area.
If there's no further comments, I'd like, we saved this to the end, so you guys don't have to wait around for this, but we have some minutes to accept.